Thank you for joining us at Toy Fair University. Next up, we have from concept to consumer, how product development and sales work hand in hand. I'll introduce you now to Matt Nuccio. Matt?
Hello, how is everyone doing today? Good, nice. My name is Matt Nuccio. I am the president and CEO of Design Edge, and we are sort of like a ghost kitchen for toy companies. We design, we do development, we get the product manufactured, we help set them up with sales and distribution, and we kind of fill in all the little gaps in between. I'm second generation. I grew up in the toy business. Design Edge itself has been in business. Next year will be 40 years. And yeah, I've seen a lot of sides of the fence over the years, and the one that's always been the most difficult was that the fact that sales and design always seem to have always gotten sort of siloed from each other. And over the years, I really tried to work to make sure that that wasn't so much the case and become friendly with salespeople and learn from salespeople, because ultimately, they're the ones who have to sell what we're developing. So, and that's how I was fortunate enough to meet Stephen. So.
And I'm Stephen Ann. I'm a national sales rep for Dan Buckey Associates, also known as Retail Sales Group. I was a buyer for toys for Walgreens for almost a decade, and I've also been on the creative side as well. It's actually where I met Matt. I was at a board game company called Big G Creative. And since then, I've gotten into the sales side, and it's been a little over 3 years now, almost 4 years. And thought this was a great opportunity to kind of go back and forth, because this is a subject that gets kind of lost. In sales and the creatives sometimes don't work hand in hand, and I think they should.
Yeah, I mean, like Toy Fair is sort of like a giant high school, and it seems like design is like the art geeks and sales is the jocks, and they don't always hang out with each other and get to know each other, but they should, because we're here to make toys, and we should understand what both sides of the fence are doing. So like. That being said, Stephen, you've worn so many hats over the years. You've championed so many products successfully, which is particularly why I thought this would be a great conversation with you. I'm not going to give you 100% like props for Funko, but I do feel like you helped guide them into some major success there. And
Thank you.
That being said, like I know that wasn't just like a randomness. There was conversations that were always had. What do you when a salesperson would come into you when you were a buyer, what would you look for in a good salesperson that you felt would help improve the product?
So that's a good question, because I had a fantastic sales rep for Funko at the time, and we got in very early it was before it even hit the shelves. I remember Brian at the time, who was the president, his first business card. So it was really, the sales guy really knew what I worked with him already on different accounts, but he knew kind of like what I was looking for. If the salesperson knows the retailer, the specific retailer, they can go back and give the best feedback to Funko. And at the time, Funko was really open up to a lot of unique opportunities. We did a whole Marvel comic book series with them, exclusive at Walgreens, and fantastic. It was a really big hit, and that wouldn't have happened if my sales guy didn't go back and actually fight for that. It was, and they actually gave us. I actually went out to Seattle and met with the Funko creative team at the time. It was Reese and Ben Butcher and really the creative team there, and they were really open and great to work with. That's like best case scenario, right? So and huge profits out of that for both.
Well, let's go on the other side. Like, we don't have to cite people or companies,
okay.
But let's talk about the other side. When you've spoken to salespeople, you've given them advice, and it just seems to fall on deaf ears. Or what do you think is going on there?
Yeah, a good, I think to know your accounts is probably the biggest thing, right? So if you're coming in there and kind of trying to push something that might not fit into a retailer, I think as a company, you got to look at every retailer a little bit differently. Something's not going to work at a big mass account. It might not work at a drug account. Might not work at value. It might not work at specialty. So there's different nuances to each retailer that a lot of sometimes you don't think about, right? So,
well, absolutely. Knowing your account is I mean, it's paramount, right?
Yeah.
Last thing you want is a really smooth salesperson that's so smooth that they walk in, they sell a line into retail at a big volume, and it just falls flat.
Right, and it can definitely happen if they don't listen, right? So I mean, packaging is, you know, a drugstore is not going to, you know, they want the smallest packaging they can get because they want the smallest, you know, they want to do
Smallest cube, yeah.
the biggest sales per square inch they can, and you know, having a good salesperson that can convey that back to, you know, the creatives and team, you know, it's extremely important to me. But from a sales side now, right? So like when's a good idea to have sales kind of come in with the creatives? You know, like when's a good time to start?
Well, I think it's very important. I know it's very important that sales should convey to their design team who that retailer is and what it is that they do and where their strengths are. And also, you know, look at what they're already displaying, know what their history is. Because many designers kind of they get a little wishy-washy and they kind of just go into these crazy areas and they're not paying attention to the retailer that they're pitching at. And you want if you're pitching to a retailer that's traditionally the more conservative, you should be aware of that's the brand of that retailer. But if they're more progressive, you should be aware of that.
That's true. I've seen some great examples of people changing up packaging to, you know, to hit certain areas. Like if it's a retailer that likes R-rated type content, and then having a secondary one that's a little more PG-13, and then if you know a lower value chain, they make it into a card game, right? I mean, that's you know, kind of like where I like going, you know, if as a sales guy, having a lot of different options, right, to be able to have something unique to each chain that you're selling into.
Right. And do you like a dialogue when you were a buyer, or when
I
or
love the
even as a rep?
dialogue. Yes, as a buyer, I mean, I was a toy fanatic before, right?
Still are.
Yeah, I still am. But as a buyer, I mean, we tested things out. We, you know, opened packages. We played with stuff there. I think I broke a few hand samples. I'm sorry. So I had and here, Raina here in the front row. Actually, we had a meeting in the complete dark. Electricity went out in one of our meetings, and it was completely dark, and we were looking at product over flashlights on our iPhones. So. But I was extremely involved, and you know, the salespeople that were there. I mean, I had a few of them. You know, my favorite salespeople were the ones that would also do that with me, right? You know, to get in a
Hang out in the dark.
Yeah, hang out in the dark with me.
Well, I mean, one thing I think that's always very strong with a good salesperson is doing sales for both sides, right? They're not just selling to the buyer; they're also bringing back the information to the sales team. Give me some examples of when sales would come to you looking for particular opportunities, or maybe even spotted an opportunity that they brought to you before they even started it.
Yeah. Oh, so I mean, I'm sure there's a few guys in the audience that I probably would text at night from. Pointing at Dave over here, I would annoy them to the point where, hey, I love this idea, and then you know it'd be at night, and they probably shouldn't have texted me back. but you know even like some of the you know the big companies like where Dave was coming up with exclusive ideas that may work for the chain, right? So those, you know, for a bigger retailer, that was you know, gold, and you know, first to market type stuff and things like that. But you know, he knew exactly what worked in our size stores, so he would come up with ideas, and yeah, we would banter back and forth. You know, if cost didn't work out, or you know, if it wasn't close, I'd have to say, you know, I need this, but I need this at a lower cost, and he's like, well, that's not going to work, but I have something else that could work. I mean, a good relationship with your sales team really makes or breaks a sale.
Well, when you were at Big G, that was a very much an opportunity-based company.
Yes. Yes.
And you would come back with sort of wish lists from the retailer.
Yes. So the company that I worked for, I was the creative director for, would actually create games based on feedback from retailers. And it was it worked really well, and that was all about trust. So they had to trust us to come up with games that fit their program, right? So that's a really a good idea of like how creative and sales work together. We were always, I mean, Shannon here, I don't know where Shannon went, but Shannon and I were on the same calls, even with our finance team. You know, like we all worked as one team, and that's how we kind of made things happen there. And you saw a lot of our games at Target, right? Barnes and Noble.
Right. I mean, if anyone has any questions, please,
Oh, yeah.
please raise your hands because open to them. Oh,
Oh, yeah.
we have a microphone for. Turn her microphone on.
Hello.
There you are.
Hello.
What do you do when you bring back your feedback to your designers and they just don't listen?
That's a good question for you, Matt.
I blame sales. You didn't explain it properly.
Yeah.
But yeah, well, actually, whenever possible, so I find sometimes sales just doesn't want to connect design with the buyer. I don't think that's a good idea, unless, of course, you've got a psycho designer who just can't communicate or might cause a problem. But if you've got someone who's articulate and can understand, sometimes just bypass. You know, let the designer have some flow, let them have a conversation, get them what they want, and also that relationship will help grow the business because a lot of buyers like that. They get to play art director.
I've seen a lot of great ideas not succeed. Like that's where I've seen stuff come in that is like fantastic, but then it's just too expensive, or it's overdone. You know, and it wasn't for our channel at the time, right? And I see, it's still there's some great items that are hard to get into retailers because they just don't kind of fit. I mean, every buyer has different opinions, right? So going to, a specialty shop or going to mass, in a lot of cases, people don't know that you're not going to get a whole brand statement in a smaller retailer either, right? You're lucky if you get an item in sometimes. So it's just kind of like letting sales and the product teams kind of got to put forward like an idea of what good looks like at that specific retailer.
Right, and it's not always a race to the bottom price, right?
Oh gosh, no.
I think that's.
It is in some of the like commodity type stuff, but no, we hate to see like label slapping and that type of stuff. But I'd like to see uniqueness, but it's got to come in at a price that that makes sense for the consumer that shops there.
Mm-hmm.
So, any other questions too? Oh yeah.
When you look at new concepts, how much does social media following play into whether or not you move forward with a concept?
Repeat that one more time. Sorry.
So how much does a social media following for your particular product or brand play into whether or not you move forward?
I tried out a lot of different ones when I was a buyer, so I'm talking from like a buyer standpoint. And some of them work, and some of them don't, and it's almost like you cross your fingers on some of them. I mean, I saw things that I thought were going to be gigantic based on the followers, and didn't work. And then I've also seen stuff that I took a shot at, and sales went crazy, and it was due to the online. Is social media, but I don't think it's I think it's great. Social media is obviously, something everybody should look into with their game, with their product. But it's not if you don't have it, it doesn't mean you're
right. But I do think that more and more though, when products are developed, that is this demonstrable? Can this be done on social media? Well, is a big factor. Like how quickly can it be explained in a video? And even if it doesn't have a social media following, we've sometimes done in presentations where we sort of fake it to show the buyers what it could look like with a social media following and how we feel like it will get picked up or copied or, reiterated. So I think it's very important to have that as part of your plan and not necessarily have it already executed. Sometimes you might want to talk to the buyer and talk about also, this is what we're thinking about for social media, or this is our budget for social media, or ask them what they think the budget should be for social media. And
Yeah, what I've noticed too is if you try to force social media on a product, sometimes it does the opposite effect, right? So, if you're showing something and it seems like a commercial, you can't trick kids into wanting something, So they tend to pick up on if they're getting a commercial or if it's genuine. So the more genuine, the better, I think, on that.
I'm a big fan of disingenuous.
Yeah.
We have 5 minutes, so if anybody else has any other questions, please.
We have
3
4
minutes. 4 minutes. Okay. So.
Oh, we're here to. I mean, if you want to talk to us afterwards.
Sure, but I don't blame you if you don't want to talk.
Yeah.
So.
But we, I think in the end, again, the sooner you get sales and product.
Right. I think it's just important just to open up those discussions.
Matt, could you talk a bit about how you implemented yourself more into sales as a designer?
Oh, how I did?
Yeah.
Sure. Well, sometimes I don't even know how that happened.
Did you force yourself onto us?
It didn't. I didn't really. It was one of those weird things. Like COVID hit, and then I guess everybody was home, and then everybody just started liking each other on LinkedIn, and the next thing I knew, it was like 30,000 people, and I just took advantage of it. But I think the biggest trick, or why my social media works a bit, is like I'm not using it as a sales platform to the buyers. I'm just if we have some success and there's an award, like we fortunate enough last night, we won a toady. I post that. That's important. Thank you. But I'm not going to run like a 30-second commercial or the social media program that somebody did it. I don't want to be. I'm not hawking goods on my social media. I'm just promoting the success of my clients, which I guess is good. But I don't know. I haven't figured this out yet.
I think you got it.
So I believe we're done, right?
Oh, no, thank you.
Oh, wait.
Wait, one more.
Is there an organizational structure that you've seen that makes sales and product development come together better than other structures?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of. I mean, in a large kind of like large toy company environment, having kind of the brand manager and the sales guys together. I had a few great examples of that that I could talk about. I don't want to name names here, but like a brand manager and a salesperson together, coming with even coming to the buyer as well. I think that's a really good opportunity. Anytime a brand person can actually make a visit is actually it sells the brand pretty. I mean, and that's another thing. Sales got to be open to that, right? So. Yeah,
I mean, I've been brought many times to buyer meetings, but I think it's also keep it simple. Don't have too big of a team. Don't have like 4 people in marketing, 2 designers, the sales force. I mean, I always like to point out, you can go to any park in the world, you're never going to see a statue of a committee. It just doesn't exist. Somebody's got to lead. Someone's got to take charge.
Yeah. That's why you'll see the Matt Nuccio statue being erected outside of the Javits Center later today. But no, it's and then with smaller companies, a lot of times the product and the sales people end up being the same or very close. So I mean, it's already happening in a lot of smaller companies.
But keep it tight, and maybe it's per the product or per the brand. There's too many opinions. Really, another one that I like to say is that a camel is a horse designed by a committee. Like again, just keep it simple, but have direct contact with the buyer because. If you keep the buyer happy, you'll be fine.
Thanks.
So
thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it. And if you have any questions, I'll be here. Matt might run.
We'll be in the corner over there.